Hi folks, this is Jay. Hope you're okay today. Just making a video called Same-Sex Threatens Freedom Part 2. I'm just going to read some factual information about how the gay rights lobby are taking away our freedoms. On December the 2005, Joe and Heather Roberts were interrogated by Lancashire police after complaining to their local council in Fleetwood about council tax money being spent on promoting gay rights. Both the police and the council at the time refused to admit they were wrong. After the threat of legal action, the council and the police apologised to Roberts and settled out of court. On December 2005, author Lynette Burrows was interviewed by police after she expressed disapproval of homosexual adoption on a talk show. The policewoman who talked to Mrs. Burrows said that a homophobic incident had been reported against her and that it would be kept on record by the police. In February 2006, Dr. N.T. Wright, Bishop of Durham, mentioned in a speech before the House of Lords about the way people were being censored for moderate comments disapproving of homosexuality. He observed, "People in my diocese have told me that they are now afraid to speak in their minds in the pub on some major contemporary issue for fear of being reported, investigated and perhaps charged. My lords, I did not think I would see such a thing in this country in my lifetime. The word for such a state of affairs is tyranny, sudden moral climate change enforced by thought police." In December 2000, and he's an eminent bishop, he was an eminent scholar as well. In September 2006, Steve Green was arrested and detained in police station for handing out evangelistic tracts at a gay pride festival in Cardiff. Police said the arrest was because the tracts Mr. Green was distributing contained Bible verses about homosexuality. In June 2008, Iris Robertson, wife of Irish First Minister Peter Robinson, was investigated by the Serious Crimes Branch of the Northern Ireland Police Force for speaking out against homosexuality. That's disgraceful that the police would do that to her. 2008, Christian counsellor Gary McFlane was sacked from his job with Relate because he confided that he would not be comfortable counselling homosexual couples about sexual problems. That's disgraceful that he lost his job because of that. Since 2008, British Catholic adoption agencies have been forced to close down because of their refusal to place children with homosexual couples. That's totally disgraceful that you would do that to Catholic adoption agencies. In December 2008, Pilgrims Homes had £13,000 of funding removed by Brighton Council because the home refused to ask its elderly Christian residents every 3 months if they were homosexual. Funding was only restored when Pilgrim Homes promised to ask the residents about their sexual orientation on admission. That's disgraceful. In January 2009, the Earl of Devon, Hugh Courtenay, had his licence to hold wedding ceremonies at Powderham Castle near Exeter revoked by Devon County Council. The jurisdiction for removing his licence was that the Earl's Christian beliefs prevented him from allowing civil partnership ceremonies to be held on his property. It's totally disgraceful what you're doing to Christians. It's just absolutely disgraceful. 2009, Christian Register Lillian Laddell faced the sacking because she asked if she could be exempt from registering civil partnership. Even though she won the case against Islington Council, the Employment Appeal Tribunal overturned the case and ruled against her. In April 20th, 2010, street preacher Dale Acklepine was arrested for allegedly telling a passerby that homosexuality is a sin. The 40-year-old Baptist was put in jail for 7 hours, causing harassment, alarm or distress. 2011, housing manager Adrian Smith had his pay slashed as punishment for saying on his private Facebook page that allowing gay weddings in churches was an equality too far. May 2011, Oxford student Sam Brown was celebrating the end of his exam. In the course of his celebration, he said to a policeman, "Excuse me, do you realise your horse is gay?" He was arrested under the 1986 Public Order Act for making offensive homophobic comments. He remained in jail overnight before the police dropped his case. February 2012, hoteliers Pete and Hazel Mary Bull were sued using government money after refusing to offer a double bed to homosexual couple. 2011. May 2012, the author of the Archbishop Cranmer blog was being investigated by the Advertisement Standards Authority for posting a petition in support of traditional marriage and displayed an image advertising the Coalition for Marriage campaign to protect traditional marriage. The image showed numerous heterosexual couples getting married but no same-sex couples. Advertising Standards Authority launched the investigation in order to determine whether the advert promotes homophobia. May 12, 2012, Law Society cancelled the venue booking for a planned conference organised by Christians Concerned called One Man, One Woman, Making the Case for Marriage for the Good of Society. The conference was organised by the World Congress of Families, but the venue booking was cancelled by the Law Society on the grounds that it is contrary to diversity policy, espousing it does an ethos which is opposed to same-sex marriage. Andrea Williams, CEO of Christian Concern, commented, "Since when can debate be against diversity? This action by the professional body demonstrates how discussion on traditional views on marriage is being shut down before any change in the law to redefine marriage has come into force. If this kind of censorship is happening before gay marriage has even been legalised, what will happen afterwards?" In May 2012, Roman Catholic schools in Wales got reprimanded by the Welsh Government for circulating a letter written by Archbishop Nicholas of Westminster in support of traditional marriage. The Welsh government alleged that the school's support of traditional marriage failed to give students a balanced perspective. Well, there we are, folks. Same-sex marriage threatens freedom. Now, so what are we going to do about it? Well, freedom is going. We're moving into a time of tyranny, where a minority tyrannize the majority. If our freedoms go, Parliament ceases to be Parliament, ceases to have any legitimacy as a Parliament. If it takes away our freedoms, it becomes a totalitarian Parliament, a totalitarian state. If Congress in America goes down the same way Britain's gone, Congress ceases to be a legitimate democratic government if it takes away freedom of speech and freedom of religion from us. And I'm sorry, but if Parliament takes away our freedoms, and if Congress takes away our freedoms, then they cease to be legitimate democratic states. Now, I do not advocate violence. I'm against violence, but I advocate social direct social disobedience to the state, the same as Gandhi and the same as Martin Luther King. At that point, and at this point right now, we can, as Christians, take on the state, take on the United States government, take on the British government, because they have become illegitimate governments. They have become totalitarian if they are taking away our human rights. And we can take them on. We can't take them on with violence, because as Christians we are not to engage in that. So I don't encourage anybody to get involved in any violent action, but I encourage every Christian and everybody to get involved in direct action against the state. That means civil disobedience. That means you can march without the permission of the governments on Parliament. You can march on Washington without the permission of the governments. And you can insist, without the government's permission, to sit outside Parliament, to sit outside Washington, to sit outside Washington DC, at the seat of government in America. You can do that and sit there and do not move until they give you your rights as a Christian. Because right now, the British government and the United States government and the intellectual elites and the elites of America and the elites of Britain are absolutely taking away our rights. You've just heard it in Britain, what's happening. And right at this moment in time, we now can activate civil disobedience, and we will activate civil disobedience. We will begin a freedom march and a freedom defense of our freedoms in the same way Gandhi did for India, and in the same way Martin Luther King did for the people in America who were despised and rejected. Right at this time, we now are set in motion, in conflict with the British government and with the United States government. We are at ideological war with the British government and the United States government, because they are systematically stripping away our Christian rights for freedom on this issue. Okay? We will not engage in violence. We are not going to engage in violence, but we will engage in civil disobedience. That will mean sitting in Parliament and refusing to leave Parliament. We will go to Parliament, we will sit in Parliament, and we will refuse to leave Parliament. We will go to Washington, and we will go to the Senate, and we will refuse to leave the Senate until we get our rights back. In other words, you will not ever put us down. You will never ever push us down. We will continue our fight for our freedoms of conscience. Because what you are bringing in is a tyranny of the minority upon the majority. That's what you're doing. You can have your gay marriage, but call it gay union or something like that. But don't call it gay marriage. Have gay union. Do that if that's what you want. But don't put gay marriage and then say all people have to accept it. That means tens of millions of Christians and Muslims and Jews all have to accept in their conscience that what you're saying is right, and you marginalise all those religious people. You have your gay rights, you go and have your civil unions, but make sure you put in the Constitution, you maintain the First Amendment in America, and you maintain in European rights and in the British rights that religious people have freedom of conscience on this issue, and they can say that it's a sin and they don't agree with it. Then you can do whatever you want, but you maintain our freedoms. But you have not maintained our freedoms, British government. You have not maintained our freedoms, American government. You're stripping away our freedoms. And you're becoming totalitarian, you're becoming dictatorship, and you're ruling by default. The British people should have a right to vote about gay rights. The British people should have a right to vote about whether it's right to have same-sex union. The American government, the American people should have a right, a specific referendum on that issue. As an American nation, American people should have a referendum on gay marriage. But you're not. You're going to bring it in by default, by a handful of politicians who are fixed on doing this. And you're going to bring it in Britain by a handful of politicians who are fixed on doing this. And because you're doing that, you have lost the right to rule and govern legitimately in England and in America, because you're bringing something that is not constitutional and is not standing for the First Amendment in America, and it's not standing for freedom of religion and conscience in this country, in the United Kingdom. So we are now ideologically at war with you, British government, and the American government. We will not engage in military action, but we will engage in civil disobedience. We will engage in Gandhi-style, Martin Luther King-style civil disobedience. Expect marches, expect us to sit in Parliament and not leave Parliament, expect us to hound you, Prime Minister and President, until you give us our rights back. We will bring no harm to anybody, but we will make sure that we will step over the law, and we will trample over the law in civil disobedience, like Gandhi and like Martin Luther King, until you give us our rights back. I want my freedom for my people, and I want it now, and nothing less will do. Okay? You give us our freedom back. You give us our freedom back. You give us our freedom back.